I installed a basketball hoop for my son. My neighbor complained daily about the noise. One evening, I came home to shattered glass, torn nets, and a notice that my property would be fined. But the fingerprints left on the deflated ball revealed more than just a name. We bought our house in Plano, Texas right before the pandemic hit. December 2019. I remember because we closed just before Christmas, and we wanted to give Isaiah a fresh start. He was 10. Quiet, sweet, a little awkward, but basketball lit him up. He used to dribble an old ball up and down the hallway in our apartment. You could hear the echo through the floors. Drove the neighbors crazy, but I didn't care. It was his thing. When we moved into the house, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I didn't tell my wife or Isaiah. I just did it. I ordered a full-size regulation hoop, the kind you bolt into the concrete. Paid a guy to pour a new slab in our driveway. Christmas morning, Isaiah ran outside in his pajamas, and when he saw it, he just froze. Then he looked at me, nodded once, and said, "This is the best thing ever." He played every day, rain or shine. Sometimes in the morning before school, mostly after. You could set your watch by it. For 15 p.m., that ball started bouncing. And that's when the problems started. Gary Pierce lived across the street. Retired Army. Ran his house like a boot camp. The lawn was shaved down to military height. The blinds were always half open. The kind of guy who never waved unless you saluted him first. When we moved in, he walked over with this stiff smile and a warning about garbage day rules. He wasn't rude, just cold. At first, it was little stuff. The first week Isaiah started playing, I noticed Gary started coming outside every afternoon, like clockwork. He'd water the same patch of grass for 20 minutes. Just standing there, hose in hand, staring across the street, not saying anything. Then one day, Isaiah told me Gary said something to him. He said I bounced too loud, Isaiah said, and that it's disrespectful to the neighborhood. I went over that evening, knocked on Gary's door. He opened it just wide enough for his face. "I'd appreciate it if you didn't speak to my son directly," I said. Calm. Gary didn't blink. "I'd appreciate it if you taught your kid some damn manners." I didn't reply. Just walked away. I didn't want to escalate, but it kept getting worse. One Saturday, I found a note taped to the front door. "This is a quiet neighborhood. Respected." No name. Just printed block letters. Then 2 days later, another one, taped to our mailbox. "Children should be seen and not heard." That's when I got pissed. I bought a cheap outdoor camera and mounted it above the garage, facing the driveway, just in case. A few nights later, Isaiah told me the net on the hoop was torn. I thought maybe it was weather. But then I checked the camera. At 2:13 a.m., I watched Gary Pierce walk across the street with a step stool and what looked like a knife. He sliced the net, pulled it halfway off, then walked back like he was taking out the trash. I printed the stills. Called the police. They said it was trespassing and vandalism, but because of the low damage cost, it was a civil matter. Basically, a slap on the wrist, if that. I replaced the net and didn't say anything to Gary. But I added 2 more cameras, one on the porch and another facing the front yard. Things were quiet for about a month. Then came the night, everything blew up. I was working late. Got home around 8:30 p.m. The porch light was off, which was weird. I pulled into the driveway and saw it instantly. The backboard was shattered, glass all over the concrete. The metal pole was bent like it had been hit with a bat. The net was shredded, hanging by threads. And the basketball? It was sitting on the front step. Flat, punctured like someone stabbed it. There were deep gashes across the rubber. I picked it up, and that's when I noticed the smudges. Greasy fingerprints, right where you'd grip to shoot. And taped to the door, a notice from our HOA. A formal warning that we were in violation of community standards. Excessive noise complaints. Unauthorized installations on visible exterior property. A fine. $300. I was shaking. Not from fear. From fury. I called the HOA that night. The woman on the phone told me the complaint had been substantiated by photographic evidence and multiple eyewitnesses. When I asked who submitted it, she paused. I'm not allowed to say. But it was thorough. The next morning, I checked all 3 cameras. Footage from 1:41 a.m. Gary Pierce again. Hood up. Gloves on. But when he grabbed the ball, he must have taken the glove off. Maybe to slice it cleaner. I zoomed in. The prints were there. Clear enough. Now here's the part one didn't expect. I have a cousin who works security for the city transit system. He owed me a favor. I handed him the ball and he ran it. 3 days later, he called me. It's a match. Gary Pierce. He's in the system for a trespassing incident from years ago. You want a printout? I did. Because I wasn't going to the police this time. I was going to handle this myself. I didn't care about the money, the hoop, or even the fine. Gary didn't just damage property. He humiliated my son. He made him scared to play in his own home. I was going to make him pay. Not with fists. Not with threats. I was going to take everything Gary Pierce valued and turn it against him. The hardest part was explaining it to Isaiah. He came home from school, saw the damage, and just stood there. He didn't say anything for a full minute. Then he looked at me and asked, "Did I do something wrong?" That crushed me. I told him the truth. "No, son. Someone did something wrong to you. And I'm not letting it go." He didn't ask more. He just went inside. Didn't pick up a basketball for weeks after that. Not even inside. It was like Gary had taken something out of him. But me? I got to work. I spent hours watching Gary's patterns. He mowed the lawn on Sundays at 8 a.m. sharp. Collected his mail twice a day. Took his garbage out early Wednesday morning, like clockwork. He had 2 cars, a beat-up Ford truck and a shiny black Cadillac CTS he babied like a newborn. Washed it every Friday morning with the same old white cloth. I started with the HOA. I pulled up every rule in the handbook and started documenting Gary's violations. His trash bins were left out too long. His porch light flickered constantly, violated light pollution policy. He had a shed that was too close to his property line. His fence was 2 inches taller than allowed. I photographed everything. Sent a full report, anonymously, with time-stamped images and rule citations. 2 weeks later, Gary got 3 notices in one day. I watched from my window as he stood in the driveway reading them, lips moving fast, face turning red. That was just the start. I filed a noise complaint against him. He had an old ham radio set up in his garage. Sometimes it buzzed loud enough to hear inside my house. I made sure the city heard it too. I sent a video to code enforcement. Then another about his lawn chemicals seeping into the street drain. Environmental concern. Required an inspection. Meanwhile, I had the basketball hoop professionally repaired and reinstalled. Same spot, stronger backboard. But this time, I added a motion-triggered light and high-res security camera. When Isaiah saw it, he just looked at me and said, "It's okay if I play again." I said, "That's why it's there." And he did. But not like before. Now he kept glancing across the street between shots. And Gary? He'd stand on his porch, arms folded, staring. Then one morning, a cop showed up at my door. Not to arrest me, to ask about Gary. "There was a report of verbal harassment," he said. "Neighbor claims you've been threatening him." I laughed. "You want to see threats? I've got 2 months of vandalism footage. Fingerprints. Damage reports. HOA violations." He left after 15 minutes. Never came back. But Gary wasn't done. That night, someone broke into my backyard. Cut one of the cameras. Didn't steal anything. Just slashed my garden hose and spray painted "No More Noise" on the back fence. Sloppy work. But he didn't know. I had installed a second, hidden camera by the side gate. Clear as day. Gary. Put off this time. Face lit up by the porch light. That was the last mistake he ever made in the dark. Because I had something else now. Proof of malicious harassment. And that's when I found out the real leverage. A friend from the neighborhood, Anna, told me Gary had applied to become an HOA board member. He wanted to clean up the street, she said. I laughed so hard I had to sit down. Because I had a plan now. I wasn't just going to hit him with fines or shame him with footage. I was going to destroy Gary Pierce's reputation, legally, publicly, and permanently. And when it was over, he'd wish the only thing he lost was a basketball game. I didn't expect Isaiah to be the one who pushed things over the edge. It started with a school project. He had to do a report on local government, and the kids were encouraged to interview someone involved in neighborhood leadership. My wife suggested the HOA. Isaiah surprised us by asking, "Can I interview Mr. Pierce?" I almost said no on instinct, but then I thought maybe this was the crack I needed. I told him he could, but only if he used a voice recorder, just like the assignment asked. He went over that Saturday afternoon. I watched from the living room window, heart in my throat. Gary came to the door, looked shocked to see Isaiah, but he let him in. 15 minutes later, Isaiah came back. He talked a lot, he said, mostly about how people don't know how to follow rules. I transferred the recording to my laptop. Gary didn't just ramble, he went off. The HOA's a joke. If I get on the board, I'll clean out these kids, these noisemakers. Everyone around here's soft. I grew up when you could drag a kid by the ear and no one said a word. Then he said it? That little punk across the street? I slashed his ball. Yeah, I did it. No one saw me. They can't prove it. He laughed. A full-on, smug chuckle. That dad thinks he's smart. He'll break before I do. I had everything I needed. But just as I was about to send that recording to the HOA anonymously, something unexpected happened. Gary's Cadillac disappeared. For 3 days, the driveway was empty. Then I saw a notice on his door. Foreclosure proceedings. I found out from Anna, same neighbor who told me about the HOA stuff. Turns out Gary had taken out a second mortgage 2 years ago. Gambling problem. Had been trying to buy influence in the HOA to protect himself from fines that were piling up. That's why he was so aggressive. He was panicking. He was broke, desperate, and dangerous. One night, my wife woke me up. There's someone outside, she whispered. I looked at the monitor. Backyard camera motion detected. It was Gary, standing by the back fence. Just standing, not moving. I called the police. But by the time they arrived, he was gone. Left a note stuck to the fence. This isn't over. I knew then this was more than a neighborhood dispute. He saw me as the one thing standing between him and whatever control he thought he had. And that's when I decided to stop playing defense. I was going to hit Gary where it really hurt. But the biggest twist came a week later. I got a letter, certified, from an attorney. Gary was suing me for harassment, emotional distress, and loss of community standing. It was absurd, but it was real. I called my lawyer. He reviewed everything I had, videos, audio, photos, notes. He smiled and said, let's bury him. That's when it became war in public, not just in shadows. And I was ready, because revenge wasn't just about payback anymore. It was about showing Gary and everyone watching. What happens when you go after someone's child and think you'll walk away clean? We walked into court with every piece of proof loaded and sorted. My lawyer, a quiet guy named Bell, didn't waste words. He didn't need to. First, he played the footage. Gary slicing the net, smashing the backboard, walking through our yard with a knife. Then the audio. My son's interview. Gary admitting everything in his own words. His tone, his laugh, it filled the courtroom. The judge looked over the rim of her glasses like she just smelled something foul. Then came the best part. The HOA board president took the stand. He confirmed Gary's pending application, the multiple anonymous complaints that had come in recently, the sudden push from Gary to tighten rules after the fines started stacking up. Gary's lawyer, some court-appointed guy, tried to paint him as a concerned veteran, a man under stress. But there was no defense for what he said on that recording. None. The judge didn't just dismiss Gary's lawsuit. She ordered him to pay my legal fees, an additional $3,200 in damages, and banned him from making any further contact with me or my family. She called his behavior predatory and retaliatory. But the real fallout came after. The HOA not only rejected Gary's board application, they barred him from holding any future position. He became a neighborhood pariah overnight. Anna told me that several homeowners had quietly filed to have his property inspected again for code violations. One found mold in his shed. Another spotted unauthorized work on his roof. City inspectors showed up 3 times in 2 weeks. Then his Cadillac got repossessed. Broad daylight. A tow truck rolled up and hauled it off while Gary stood in the driveway screaming. Kids on the block recorded it. Someone posted it to Nextdoor with the caption, "Guess who's not in charge now?" And then he was gone. One morning, a for sale sign appeared. No goodbye, no note. Just a moving truck and silence. A week later, the house sat empty. Isaiah didn't ask where he went. He just went outside and picked up the basketball. He started playing again, loud, confident. And this time, other kids joined him. Little by little, our driveway became the court for half the street. Laughter, sneakers, the thump of the ball, it came back louder than ever. And me? I learned something. I should have acted sooner. I let Gary think silence was safety, that he could push and harass and wear us down. But once I stood up, not just for me, but for my son, everything changed. He didn't just lose a fight. He lost control, reputation, and peace. And I didn't lay a hand on him. Revenge came through the truth, through exposure, through making damn sure everyone saw who he really was. He came after my kid. Now he doesn't even live here anymore. And Isaiah? He's got the loudest jump shot on the block.